Thank you for the introduction. I am Tomihiro Tanaka, the president of the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification in Japan. I would like to express my sincere gratitude for having been invited to this very important event. And also, Chairman Pema Gyalpo, it's nice to see you. And also, Mr. Marco Respinti, I am truly happy to be able to see you here. And thank you for your encouraging words and words of courage. And also, we also received a message from Pastor Paula White, who was the spiritual advisor to President Trump. I am truly grateful for that message too. I believe the reason that I have been invited here is to speak on behalf of our organization in response to the recent media coverage on the issue of freedom of religion and human rights, which was triggered by the abnormal media reports following the shooting of former Prime Minister Abe and has led to the current situation where the government has demanded our dissolution. First of all, I would like to offer my sincere apologies for the fact that over the past 2.5 years, the media coverage of our organization has caused a stir in the Diet and in the general public, and has also contributed to a sense of social distrust of religious groups among many citizens. I'm also deeply sorry for the anxiety and worry that this has caused to our followers. Today, many religious leaders are present, and I sincerely regret that we must address the theme of religious freedom under such circumstances. After the incident with former Prime Minister Abe, we were perplexed by the sudden storm of critical media reports. But we also reflected on many of our previous church activities and actively worked on church reform while facing various opinions and suggestions from everyone. Since obtaining religious corporation status in 1964, the Family Federation has spent 60 years upholding the teachings of our founder and the values of living with God and living for the sake of others. We have nurtured many passionate young leaders devoted to saving the world. We have also strived to contribute to building a world of peace through our global network. However, it is also true that we have always faced opposing forces to these ideals. One such force is the atheistic and communist ideologies that reject the notion that the foundation of peace is the family, and the foundation of a nation is the family, and that fundamentally deny the belief in eternal life. We have been subjected to attacks by many left-wing lawyers, journalists, and the Communist Party. Moreover, the fact that our founder was Korean has undeniably contributed to the distortion of the media coverage against us. Since the shooting incident, while the trial of the murder of former Prime Minister Abe has yet to be held, aggressive reporting on the Family Federation, also referred to as the Reo witch hunt, has swept across all media. Distrust of traditional media, such as television and newspapers, had already been growing in recent years. And the reporting on our organization has also been extremely biased. opposing forces that have been plotting to dissolve our organization for decades have positioned this incident as the perfect opportunity, misleading public opinion with distorted information, and involving politicians ultimately pushing for a dissolution order. It is very unfortunate, but even now, the voices of our members do not reach the government, the media, or the public. Our hopes for a fair and impartial reporting have been betrayed, and the true voices have been completely silenced. For our members, their existence has been denied, and having faith itself has become a risk to their lives. Since the incident, the damage caused to the organization by media reports has been immense. While I would prefer to avoid discussing the details here, some of our church staff have been severely affected, suffering from mental health issues, including depression. In the end, political motivations led to the request for a dissolution order. But frankly speaking, we still have several doubts. Let me share some of them with you. First, I would like to address the issue of fabricated victims, namely the problem of forced apostasy through abduction and confinement. Among those who are referred to as victims in past civil cases, which the government has used as grounds for requesting dissolution, many were individuals who left our organization after being abducted, confined, and coerced into abandoning their faith. Christian pastors opposing the Family Federation, deprogrammers motivated by financial gain, and opposing lawyers have formed a network manipulating parents and relatives to abduct and confine individuals, trapping them in environments when they are forced to renounce their beliefs. Once confined, often this continues for months or even years. Despite repeated complaints to the police about these extreme criminal acts, they took no action whatsoever. The United Nations Human Rights Committee issued recommendations to the Japanese government regarding abductions and forced confinement, but to this day, the Japanese government has continued to ignore them. All cases of forced apostasy have been dismissed as family issues. Doors were locked with multiple locks. Iron bars were installed on windows, and contact with the outside world was completely cut off. On top of that, several family members constantly stayed with and monitored that individual. How is this a family issue? Can such a situation be called a family discussion? Opposing lawyers have shamelessly called it protection by the family. To conceal the abduction, they use the term protection. And the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology even introduced the term monitoring to further conceal the fact that these are fabricated victims. This move by the government to rely solely on the testimonies of these defectors misleads the public and undermines democracy, which is based on rule of law. One European religious scholar criticized this, saying, "A parade of ex-members who became apostates has begun." Fortunately, about 30% of the abducted members have returned safely. Why do they not listen to their experiences? Next, I would like to address the declaration of severing relations made by the President of the Liberation Democratic Party, the current ruling party. He described the Family Federation as a group with social issues and declared the severing of relations. The President of the LDP is also the Prime Minister of Japan. Due to this statement by then Prime Minister Kishida, the Family Federation was branded as an antisocial organization. Some local governments used this declaration as a justification to pass resolutions to sever relations. And much of the damage inflicted on our organization stems from this declaration. However, we have not heard even once from the President himself that what the problem with the Unification Church is. According to the Religious Corporations Act, exercising the right to question shall not be interpreted as being authorized for the purpose of a criminal investigation. The requirements for dissolution could not be found, and the exercise of right to question became an attempt to find the basis for the dissolution order. We argue that this is a violation of the Religious Corporations Act. Third is the effectiveness of the LPD's severing relations. How exactly will this be promoted? Does this mean that all the religious beliefs of each and every supporter will be checked? How will they sever relations, going beyond freedom of thought and belief? If a member of the Family Federation supports an LPD member in the next election, how will their thought and belief be checked? Fourth, why is the Consumer Affairs Agency handling the issue of donations to religious corporations? Donation practices are purely religious acts. Shouldn't recommendations regarding illegal activities in this regard come from the appropriate authority, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology? Does this mean the government does not view donations as a religious act and instead regards them as consumer transactions, just like a sale of goods? The Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology has condemned our organization as a social harm, claiming that the legal status of the religious corporation has functioned as a vehicle for illegal activities or the acquisition of property through deviant practices. In simpler terms, they are labeling the Family Federation as a money-making criminal organization disguised as a religious corporation. Over 100,000 active members are living according to our teachings, practicing a life of living for the sake of others, as Japanese citizens who love the world. They lead happy lives. Second-generation members who have chosen their faith for themselves are also proudly sharing the joy of their belief. Even when so, is the Family Federation still to be judged as not being a religion? By the way, according to the data released by the Consumer Affairs Agency under the newly enacted Unfair Donation Solicitation Prevention Law, I would like to note that as for now, there have been 0 cases requiring recommendation for our organization under this law. Number 5, I believe the government should be fair and impartial. While the government has listened to the voices of former members who have lost their faith and left the church, why has it closed its ears to the voices of the current members? From our perspective, the dissolution order is equivalent to a death sentence. It would result in the erasure of our social identity. Despite the gravity of such a matter, the government reached the worst possible decision without even hearing from the people directly involved. We requested to submit 53,000 handwritten petitions from members across the country, but the government refused to accept them directly. As a result, we had no choice but to send them by mail. In contrast, when the government accepted petitions from former members and groups advocating for the dissolution of our organization, they invited the media and even publicly released photographs. This is clearly an unfair response by the government. In fact, this kind of treatment has been the norm in how we have been handled. On the day the dissolution order request was announced, the entrance to the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology was sealed off. Did they genuinely believe that members of the Family Federation would launch an attack? This seems like nothing more than an unilateral attempt to manipulate public opinion. The sixth is the change in interpretation of laws and regulations that took place overnight. Up to that point, the government had consistently insisted that the grounds for requesting a dissolution order were criminal matters only and did not include civil offenses. However, under pressure from distorted information fueling public opinion and media narratives, as well as attacks from opposition parties, the interpretation was abruptly changed overnight. Just 4 days prior, a cabinet decision had affirmed the previous stance, yet this was overturned in a single night. Despite calls for an explanation, the government continues to refuse to disclose the details. The Family Federation has maintained its corporate status for 60 years and has never been convicted of criminal charges such as fraud or coercion. To cite examples from other religious corporations, there was an organization whose leaders caused the deaths of 7 people through group assaults under the pretext of repentance, as well as an organization with over 12 criminal offenses. Yet, the courts ultimately did not approve their dissolution. Furthermore, the civil cases that the government cites as grounds for dissolution were all resolved through settlement payments or mutual agreements and are already closed. Since 2009, our rigorous compliance efforts have significantly improved areas of deficiency within our organization, and there have been no new civil lawsuits related to donations since 2016. This is where the Family Federation stands today. So then what is the true intention behind this decision to request a dissolution order? Religious council members who questioned former Prime Minister Kishida's sudden reversal were persuaded with arguments such as, if we don't act, the government itself could collapse. This overnight reinterpretation seems to have destined the dissolution of the Family Federation an absolute and unchallengeable directive. Seventh, why is the Family Federation accused of being an anti-Japanese organization? I believe that none of our current members feel that our organization teaches anti-Japanese ideology. On the contrary, our founders, Reverend Sangmya Moon and Dr. Hakjahan Moon, have always emphasized that those who cannot love their own country cannot love the world. While it is undeniable that we have faced unreasonable criticism due to being a religion originating in Korea, there was a report on November 28th and 29th in the United Nations Human Rights Committee in Geneva, Switzerland, stating that the abnormal attacks by the Japanese government on the Family Federation could amount to discrimination against minorities and religious minorities. Looking back at the 60 years of the Family Federation in Japan, I can confidently state on behalf of all members that we have fully embodied the vision of loving heaven, loving people, and loving the nation. The series of actions taken by the government this time means that the threshold for government intervention in religion has been significantly lowered. At this moment, I am deeply concerned that Japan's democracy is beginning to break down. The violation of freedom of religion and human rights signifies the collapse of universal human rights for all of humanity. Former European Commission Special Envoy for the Promotion of Freedom of Religion outside the EU, Jan Figel, stated, "Freedom of religion is the litmus test for all human rights. If this is not respected, freedoms of speech, assembly, and association will undoubtedly be restricted, suppressed, and violated." Today, I have spoken from the perspective of the Family Federation, which is facing many trials. However, I hope that you will understand that this issue is not limited to just one religious organization, but it is a challenge for all religions, and in fact, a matter that shakes the very foundation of democratic states. The Family Federation is fully committed to promoting reforms that adapt to the times, aiming to become an organization that contributes to the public good while ensuring the faith is passed on to future generations. We sincerely ask for your understanding and support in this endeavor. This afternoon, our members across the country have planned rallies and marches to deliver the truth to the people of Japan. If you happen to see them on the streets, we would be grateful for your words of encouragement. Thank you once again for inviting me today, and thank you for your kind attention.